Here we are back with this practice worksheet that I wanted you to do on your own. We did the first one together after you went through the lecture and you got the notes and a little explanation of how this classical conditioning business works. And then we did that one together. Hopefully it made sense as we were doing it together. And hopefully as you tried the other three on your own, you were able to make some sense of it as well. My guess is that some of you got some of it right but missed a few things. And my guess is also that some of you were really confused when you tried it on your own and struggled to get any of it right. And that's okay, wherever you are. This is the first time that you try this on your own. So what I want to do is go through numbers 2, 3, and 4 together. I want you to have your paper available so that you can look at the responses that you filled out. And hopefully, if you did have some things wrong, well, hopefully you were able to figure it out and it made sense and you were able to plug these formulas in, no problem. But as I said, I'm guessing that that's not the case for everybody. Hopefully, though, whatever you did get incorrect, as we go through it together right here now, you'll be able to make those corrections, and it will make sense as you're hearing me kind of talk you through it and walk you through it. So let's do that. All right, let's start with number 2. Number 2 says, a boy is fond of sour pickles, which make his mouth water whenever he eats them. He passes an open vat of pickles in the supermarket and begins to salivate. All right, as I said yesterday, you always want to start with who the learner is. So who's the learner here? Of course, it is the boy. The pickles aren't learning anything. Now, it sounds ridiculous, but there are some examples that, as we go through and do more practice, they get a little bit more tricky where there's multiple people involved in the example and you got to figure out who the learner is. This one, pretty easy. It is the boy. Okay, so let's start with the unconditioned stimulus. There is some stimulus that causes this boy to have a response every time. In fact, the very first time he ever encountered the stimulus, it probably made him respond. And that unconditioned stimulus is the taste of pickles. Every time he bites into a pickle, there is a stimulus on his taste buds. And that taste of these sour pickles makes him respond. How? What is his reaction to that? His mouth waters. This is unconditioned because my guess is he didn't have to learn this response. The very first time he ever tasted a sour pickle, his mouth watered and he really enjoyed it. All right, so as this scenario plays out, what other stimulus is eventually paired with this taste of pickles? It is the sight of pickles. Now, some of you, when you do these formulas, you'll find out that the way you fill these out and the wording can vary and still be correct. So, for example, some of you may have put let me change that to the open vat of pickles. So he either sees the pickles when he's walking by them, so you could even say the sight of pickles, or he smells the pickles when he walks by. It could be the smell of pickles or the actual vat itself. So all of those would be correct. Those are all things that are stimulating him when he's in the supermarket, right? And as soon as he walks past that open vat of pickles and sees and smells the pickles, that neutral stimulus is no longer neutral. It becomes a conditioned stimulus. So draw that arrow over like I told you, because those two things are always the same. Now, what's happening here is a psychological pairing of these two stimuli. When he walks past that open vat of pickles, he psychologically associates that with the taste of pickles. And of course, now all he has to do is see an open vat of pickles, and what is his new conditioned response? He starts salivating. He might not even realize that he's salivating, but he just starts salivating and his mouth starts watering whenever he sees these pickles in the supermarket. All right, my guess is that you've had similar experiences with your favorite foods, just like this kid has. All right, now, if you didn't get that all right when you did it on your own, hopefully as we walk through it, you were able to make the changes, but more importantly, hopefully it made sense as I was talking it out. All right, let's try it with number 3. Number 3 says, a boy who is trained in karate often practices by throwing mock punches at his sister. One day, he accidentally hits her in the eye and hurts her. From that day on, every time he raises his hands, his sister blinks. All right, so let's start with identifying who the learner is. Who's the learner here? The learner is the sister. It is not the brother. Now, he may learn something through this experience, but the way it's worded, the girl is who is learning here, the little sister. All right, so what unconditioned stimulus does this sister encounter? The thing that she doesn't have to learn to respond to. When it happens, she has a response. It's unconditioned. And that was the hit. That stimulus of being hit in the eye causes what response? She has a pain response. Now, again, the way you word this could vary. You may have put that it hurts her. That's her pain response. And that makes sense. It's unconditioned. If any one of us gets hit in the eye, our response to that stimulus is going to be that we feel pain. All right, well, what neutral stimulus does she psychologically pair with the time she was hit? It is her brother's raised hand. She psychologically associates or pairs that hit, him raising his hands any time from now on to the time that he hit her by accident in the eye. So through the learning process, we're going to draw this over, that neutral stimulus is no longer neutral. It now becomes a conditioned stimulus because every time her brother raises his hand, what is her new conditioned response? The girl blinks. So, for example, it might be 2 days after he had accidentally hit her in the eye, and she's standing at the counter in the morning before school, and she's getting her cereal bowl ready or something, and her brother comes into the kitchen and just reaches up above her to the cabinet to get the granola bars, and she blinks and flinches. She may not even realize she's doing it. That's how it works. But she's been conditioned that every time he raises his hand near her, she blinks. All right? Questions about that? Well, if you do have questions, I want you to send me an email or hit me up with a message, and I'll do my best to try to answer them. Let's try one more. Let's see if one more helps. Number 4 says, when they were going together, a guy and his former girlfriend had a favorite CD which they frequently listened to together. Although they broke up over a year ago, whenever he hears a song from that album, a wave of bittersweet sadness comes over him. Aw, that's terrible. What the heck kind of wimp is this kid? It's a year later and he's still crying when he hears. I'm just kidding. He was in love and his girlfriend broke up with him. And through this process, he has experienced some conditioning. So, who is the learner here? It is not the girlfriend. It is the guy. All right, so what unconditioned, this one is tricky, by the way. What unconditioned stimulus does this guy experience? The thing that causes him to respond the very first time it ever happened, the unconditioned stimulus is the girl. Now, some of you are scratching your answers out and changing it right now and freaking out because there's actually 2 ways that you could fill this one out. We'll do it twice. So the girl causes what unconditioned response? Maybe you put happiness. Maybe you put love, a little smiley face. Because probably the very first time he ever saw this girl in 9th grade science class, when she walked into their class, he saw her and he just got this happy feeling inside. It might have been love at first sight. He didn't even have to learn it. It happened the very first time. It was unconditioned. Now we add a neutral stimulus. The neutral stimulus is the song or the CD. Because for the time that they were going together, he paired the CD and the songs from that CD with this girl all the time because they were paired together. They were always listening to it together. So eventually, that neutral stimulus of that CD or that song is no longer neutral. Because every time he hears a song from that CD, what is his new response? Even if he's not with the girl. In fact, now it's a year later and he's not with the girl and he hears a song, He gets a wave of bittersweet sadness. His response is to feel sad. Now, this one's wild because initially the CD and the songs on that CD, if he would have heard them when they were still together, probably would have caused him to get a big smile on his face and feel happy. But now when he hears that song, he thinks of the girl and it makes him sad. Okay, there is another way that this one could be filled out. Let's try it a different way here. So I'm going to erase this and just go through a different way. All right, now in the end, we know that we're going to work this one backwards. We know that his conditioned response is bittersweet sadness. And we know that it is the song from that CD that causes it. Well, if we know that, then the neutral stimulus has to be the song. And after the learning process has taken place, another way that this conditioning can be happening, he could be pairing that song with a different stimulus. And so some of you may have gone and done it this way. What other stimulus a year later does it make him think of? The breakup. Or the stimulus could be, I don't want to date you anymore, when his girlfriend broke up with him. He obviously felt a response of sadness when that happened, right? Now, as the learning takes place, he pairs that song with the breakup and the fact that his girlfriend told him that she didn't want to see him anymore, and it makes him sad. So really, either one of those ways that you broke that down are probably accurate. I hope that wasn't more confusing. I hope it made it less confusing. Hopefully, as we walk through all of these, it gives you a better understanding of how this classical conditioning process works. Now, the good news is you can send me a message and ask me any kind of questions that you want if any of this was confusing, and I'll try to answer them that way. If we need to meet, we can get on a meeting together and go over it and talk through some of it. You can ask questions that way. And the other thing is, even if you're still a little bit confused, like this was maybe helpful, but you're still a little confused, we're going to do more practice like this. So we're not done with classical conditioning. You're going to get more opportunities to practice this and review it before we ever have a quiz or a test on it. All right? I'll see you in the cyber world.